for tuning into Testimony Tuesday. Today's testimony comes from Bruce and Marquita Stedman. Listen and be blessed.
Hello, Hopewell. This is Bruce and Marquita Stedman, and we are honored to be able to share our testimony with you today.
We are so thankful that the pastor and the pastor's leadership gave us this opportunity. We are truly blessed. We miss all of you, seeing you in person, but thank goodness for social media and the opportunity to submit this videotape to allow you to hear our testimony.
So this is a quick testimony. So one of the things that we wanted to share with you was what we had gone through in March relative to COVID-19. So on March 20th, I started to feel ill and became pretty sick over the first 2 or 3 days and was tested and confirmed that I did have COVID-19. When you go through something like that, you start understanding the seriousness of it. You pray anyway, but you probably pray even harder for your own recovery. But not long after that, Marquita actually got sick as well. So as I started to feel better after the initial phase of COVID-19, Marquita got sicker. And I would say to some extent it was a test. And that test was not the test that confirmed that there was an illness, but the test was really the process that you go through and the test on your faith. So for me, the real test was when Marquita got sicker than I, and I had to take her to the hospital for x-rays. And the reality of that moment, taking her to the hospital and walking her to the door and being sent home. And I wasn't really sure whether to go home, whether to stay in the parking lot. But what I was sure of is I needed to pray. So what I did is I went back to my car and I sat in the car and I started texting the friends and family and my Hopewell family. And I can tell you, when I reached out to those people and that Hopewell family, I could feel the power of prayer, that corporate prayer that was coming together at that time. And several people told me, I'm praying right now. And I can tell you, I was so full of the emotion and so full of faith and praying for God's grace, and that Marquita would leave that hospital that day, because the other part of that, so many people check into the hospital with her symptoms and don't check out the same way that they went in. So from that point, not knowing whether to go home, whether to stay in the parking lot, I just stayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed along with all of the other folks that were praying along with us. And about 3 hours later,
I walked out of the hospital. And I didn't know going into the hospital, like Bruce said, if I would come out. But I did feel the presence of the Lord. And even before I left for the hospital, a friend from church actually had sent me several healing prayers. And I had no idea how much I would need to rely on those prayers that evening. And as Bruce said, he had the prayer warriors going, and I felt those prayers. And even as I sat there waiting for my x-ray results to come back, I received numerous texts from Hopewell family members, friends, family members checking in on me. And I even had someone from Hopewell, church member and friend, call me and pray for me as I awaited my results. So as Bruce said, this has truly been a testimony for us. When we have an opportunity, every opportunity that we get, we share our testimony with others because we saw firsthand the power of God. And if we can do anything for anyone else by sharing our story, we will continue to do that.
Thank you. So the question really comes down to, what do you learn when you go through something like this? And I talk about the importance of understanding not the infection itself, but the cure, right? So the cure is not just the physical cure, but the spiritual cure. And my takeaway, and I think our takeaway as we've talked about this, is the understanding that, a lot of times when you go through these things, you try to go through them by yourself, or with your very closest friends, your spouse, your family, etc. But it was really the power of corporate prayer that got us through this in terms of understanding spiritually, understanding the awesome power of our God, and how going forward we will continue to share and rely on the power of prayer in our Hopewell family.
Saints, I pray you were blessed and inspired. Don't forget to join us next Tuesday as we hear from another Hopewell family. May God continue to bless you and keep you is our prayer.